Yeah.
Nick, just going on from length of use of HRT, something that I guarantee you comes up every day is the use of, you spoke earlier about 50% of women plus experiencing vaginal symptoms, as they age. And something that comes up all the time is conversations, particularly with GPs who are very nervous about giving local estrogen alongside systemic estrogen, or for women who have maybe already had Vagifem, something like Vagifem, talking about having vulval symptoms and wanting to use one of the creams alongside that. So you spoke about the tiny doses. And also for those vaginal symptoms, they will need to be managed long term. You said how tiny the doses are. I mean, for me, that it doesn't make sense to not to allow these women to have these treatments. And from everything you've said, there's no medical reason as far as risk versus benefit of why they shouldn't be using vaginal estrogen alongside systemic estrogen and long term.
Well, vaginal estrogen or vulval estrogen for that matter, the benefits only last for as long as it's used. And I believe, there's such low doses and there's so little concern about long-term use. I would be perfectly happy for somebody to use it for life, and I would encourage them to do so, because you don't want the symptoms coming back 5-10 years later or whenever. And the symptoms will usually return when the treatment is discontinued. And the doses are tiny, as I've said before. 1 year of that particular preparation, Vagifem, is equivalent to 1 day of hormone therapy. So when you're adding such a tiny dose to systemic hormone therapy, and particularly now when we're using perhaps not as high doses of systemic hormone therapy, so it doesn't fully alleviate local symptoms, you're not adding significantly to the total dosage of estrogen. So I have no concerns at all about local estrogen being used with systemic hormone therapy. And in fact, one of the advantages if somebody is on systemic hormone therapy is that they're on progesterone as well as estrogen. And if they're requiring higher than licensed doses of the local treatment to protect the vulva and vagina, then you don't need to worry about the uterine lining at all, because it's protected by the progesterone that they're using systemically.
Yeah.
But I would like to say something about doses, because we now know that because these doses of local treatment are so low, often the standard dose isn't sufficient to fully alleviate symptoms. And again, I always say, if you're going to be on something, you should be on something that fully alleviates your symptoms, not just improves things by 20 or 30%.
Yeah.
So often we do have to use more than the standard doses, either more frequently or a higher dosage. Yes, that should be perhaps monitored a bit more closely. But what we have found is that there's not usually a problem, and as you've said, and this is very important, sometimes the vaginal preparation isn't adequate to alleviate the vulval symptoms. So, the itching and the irritation is still there, or there may be particularly exquisite discomfort at the entrance of the vagina.
Yeah.
And I find that if a little bit of cream is just applied to those areas and just sort of carefully massaged in, it can actually make a big difference to the symptoms, as well as applying those vaginal tablets or vaginal creams into the vagina. Again, that's where fine-tuning the treatment to the needs of the individual can make such a difference to quality of life.
Absolutely. And that's really the key, isn't it, Nick? It's about improving, all this is about improving quality of life, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And
I've got three.
And enabling women, I think, to take control of their lives. I just get very frustrated that for every person I see in my clinic, there's probably another 100 out there that, you know, don't know where to turn and, you know, are suffering in silence.
Ah, you and me both, Nick.